In times of crisis, which Israel is in right now, with the very, very difficult, costly war against Hamas and the importance of trying to save the hostages, and the fact that virtually the entire world is putting tremendous pressure on Israel to make concessions, to have a ceasefire, even if all the hostages are not returned. This is a time of crisis, and in such times we have to look to the Torah for guidance. And I believe that there is guidance from the Torah. If we look at the book of Ecclesiastes, and King Shlomo wrote that for everything there is a time. And he begins to list things: a time for war, a time for peace, a time to sow, a time to reap, and so on and so forth. It's a very, very important teaching that many endeavors do not succeed, even if they're well planned, because timing is a factor. And this is a time when Israel has to be unified, which it was the initial response. But with the current demonstration of massive demonstrations and opposition to Netanyahu, irrespective of whether he's at fault or not at fault, the time will come. This is not the time. This is the time when the nation has to be united. The massive demonstrations bring joy to the followers, to Hamas. That's precisely what they had in mind. In my opinion, that's the reason why they displayed such enormous cruelty on October 7th. If people wonder why, we know that they're immoral, they don't care, but in terms of their propaganda efforts, why would they act in such a way that everybody would have to condemn? I think perhaps they had an idea, because they took hostages. That was part of the hostage-taking strategy, knowing that there'd be a segment in Israel. The country is divided into two groups: those who want to win the war against Hamas for the sake of defending Israel. But then there's another group of those who want the hostages back, the relatives, the families of the hostages, which we can fully understand their anguish. We fully understand why they're desperate to get their relatives back. And perhaps the reason that they displayed such cruelty, Hamas, was to create this tremendous anxiety in the hearts of the family members, that your family members, our hostages, there's no guarantee that they won't be tortured. So this keeps people awake at night. They can't deal with this. And therefore it leads to a tremendous protest movement of people whose only goal right now is to get the hostages back, irrespective of the war. So what's the most important thing? Is it the war to defeat the enemy of Israel, and thus the security of the state itself, which is the ultimate goal? If the state is not secure, so it's not just the hostages that are in trouble, it's all Israelis. So it's a very, very difficult thing. But the worst thing we can do is to fight with each other. The worst thing we can do is to take to the streets, as Israelis were doing for months and months before October 7th. And this gave the enemy a lot of encouragement that the country is weak and that it's impossible for them to be unified. I know a lot of people said in the first days after the war they've never seen such unity. Yeah, that's true, but it was limited. Now you're beginning to see that it was not true unity. And that unity is, if it falls apart, and Israel goes back to these massive demonstrations and all their energy is utilized in fighting each other, what happens to the welfare of the country itself? Does anybody care about the country itself? That's the important question. This is a test. This war is not just a test militarily or diplomatically, it's a test of the moral fiber of the people. Do you have the capability to put aside your own personal interest at the moment? They will be taken care of in the right time. And support the government. The government is the only government you have right now that's doing the fighting. It's their responsibility. They need our support. And as far as the other issues are concerned, there will be a time. But only if we operate properly and take care of the things in their appropriate time will we reach the point where we will achieve the victory, and then we will be able to establish the state on a stronger basis, stronger than ever.